Hello everyone and welcome to this video on measurement all around the trapezoidal rule. So the trapezoidal rule is a rule that deals with the trapezium, which also can be called a trapezoid depending on where you are in the world. Here in Australia we like to call it a trapezium. So a trapezium is a shape that has two parallel sides, so two sides that are parallel to each other, and the other two sides can either be parallel or not parallel, but we usually have them as not, simply because if they are parallel, they're either a parallelogram, it's a rectangle, or it even could be a square or a rhombus. So two sides that are parallel, okay? In the trapezoidal rule, as you can see here on the screen, is we have the area of a trapezium. So here is our area of a trapezium, just highlighted there for us. So the area of the trapezium is a half of a plus b times h. Now, you'll notice that that looks suspiciously like the triangle formula for area, which is a half bh. And that's essentially where it comes from, is because if you manipulate a trapezium in the right way, it actually forms a triangle. Okay, so we can form that triangle, we get that triangular formula. Now, in terms of this one, to make it a little bit easier, we actually have, we've moved that h over the 2, so it's now h on 2 outside of a plus b. Makes it just that little bit easier to work with if we're not doing all the extra bits and pieces. Okay. Now, in terms of the trapezoidal rule, it is essentially the same thing, only we're giving some different names and terminology to what we're using. So in terms of this one, so we still have our height, which is the perpendicular height. So it's the perpendicular height. And then these, instead of having a plus b, we now have the first distance and we have the second distance, or the last distance. Okay, so I move that up till we can see it. So we have height, or perpendicular height, because it should be at right angles to what you're using. And then we have the first distance instead of A, and the second distance, or the last distance, instead of B. So it's the same basic principle, but instead of using A and B, we're using DF and DL. Okay, so let's have a look at how this all works. They're basically the same formula, just a couple of different letters. And they will help us later on when we get to some other rules. So let's have a look at these two examples. We have a regular, fairly regular looking trapezium with one side being 16 millimeters, the other side being 30 millimeters, and that perpendicular height being 12 millimeters. So if I move that up a little bit more, we can label each part of this. So this is H, which is the 12, A, and B. Now, in terms of the trapezoidal rule, we're going to change A and B to DF, so they're our first distance, and DL for our last distance. Okay, first distance, last distance. But it's going to work pretty much the same way. So we're going to have area equals H on 2 DF plus DL. And that's how we set up our formula, and we just plug in those numbers where they need to be. So H is our perpendicular height, that's 12 millimeters. So we have 12 over 2. Okay, moving on to now distance F, or distance DF, which is going to be our 16, plus DL, which is 30. And then we can just plug that straight into our calculator to get our response. Okay, now this is going to link up very nicely with another formula that we're going to use later on down the track, and we're going to see how this all adds together. So get our fraction up. 12 over 2. Out of our fraction, use our very good little keys here, which are our bracket keys, and then have 16 plus 30. We're going to close off our bracket and then just hit equals. And there's our area, 276. Our units of measurement for this one are millimeters, so millimeters squared. Pretty straightforward, don't you think? Okay, let's do our other example here. Same basic idea. We have H, we have DF, and we have DL. Okay, if you need to, label your diagram so that you know what numbers you're going to pull out for what parts of your formula. Otherwise, you may mix yourself up and use one of your numbers twice, one of your numbers not at all. You might accidentally use the wrong height number. Whatever you need to do to help yourself out, you do it. So if that includes labeling bits and pieces like we've just done, do so. Okay, let's get this area done. A equals a H on 2, dF plus dL. Now you'll notice that F and that L are our subscripts. Okay, so they're not special letters that you're going to put in for. It's the D bit that you're going to put in for. All right. So our height this time is 11. So 11 over 2. First distance is 10, plus our second distance, which is 15. And we can multiply that all together. So let's start again with our fraction key. 11 over 2. Let's get out of our fraction now. And then all we have to do is start with our brackets. And then just 10 plus 15. And then we just got to close our brackets and then hit equals. Now, in one of my previous videos, I explained that this is just a fraction form of your answer. You haven't gotten anything wrong here. All you need to do is now hit our very special key over here, that is S with some arrows and a D, standard form to decimal form. We want to get that decimal form. So let's click that button. And now we have our decimal, which is 137.5. And again, we want our units of measurement. Again, in this case, it is millimeters, millimeters squared, millimeters squared. Okay, so that's it for the trapezoidal rule and trapeziums. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and hopefully we can see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.